what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 22nd of February in the year 2020, and we are going to try doing this once again. They took us down yesterday. They took us down pretty good. I've never seen that before, where we completely lost the guest, and my emails were not going through to her either. But Karen Stewart is back. Karen, you're still here.
Hey, yes, I am.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. A lot of people had a lot of questions. But can we get back to what you were trying to explain, the document you were reading before we suddenly lost signal on just your end?
Yeah, do you want me to, let's see now, I got basically halfway through it. And I was starting page number 3, and I have 3 and 4 left to go. Do you want me to just start there?
Would you mind just starting at the top all over again?
No, that's fine. I'll do that.
Because, I mean, it makes sense because people are going to come across this video and not see the other 2 videos. So we might as well just start all over again.
Okay.
One question real quick before I forget. One of the subscribers asked, is there a level above G15?
Ah.
I already kind of answered it for you. If you can't answer it, it's fine.
Yeah. Then you would be getting into a special position, so not that I know of, but then again, I was never near the GS15 level, because I had, actually in all, I had 3 promotions stolen from me, one double one. And that's why I ended up making inquiries, because I had a 6-month project that I did. And my big boss, my directorate boss, basically decided he was going to put in a woman he was sleeping with to give her credit for my work, which would have jumped me from a GS12 to a GS14. But she got the promotion because he wanted to reward her for her sexual favors.
All right, let me ask you a question. First of all, is my audio better right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, second, the woman that jumped you in line and had sex with your boss for promotional considerations, did she work for a particular organization that people might know of?
We were all NSA, and we both were in the Weapons and Space Directorate.
Weapons and Space Directorate. She didn't work for Mossad? That wasn't the same woman you were talking about as yesterday?
Oh, it is the same woman, because what it looked like later
I was listening.
That there was Mossad infiltration inside of NSA, and she was part of it, is what it looks like to me. I think if they investigate, get off their butts and investigate, they will find that's exactly what it was.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I had the microphone plugged into the wrong laptop, so I'm glad somebody just said that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. Whenever you're ready, have at it.
All right.
Let me find the link for the document while you're reading it so I can put it in the chat for people.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead. Have at it at your leisure.
All right. So this I wrote February 11th. I said, what the heck? Let's just put this down in an affidavit form so that I can give it out to people who might be able to use it, and give it out to any leadership, meaning representatives, because we're their bosses. Give it out to any representatives who might be inclined to look into corruption. So here it is. It says, I, Karen Melton Stewart, on this day of February 11th, 2020, do state for the record that the following observations and conclusions are true to the best of my knowledge. In February 2015, my lawyer submitted a subpoena request to Judge Lawrence Gallagher at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, where I had filed suit against the National Security Agency, NSA, in 2010. The subpoena was to request the Maryland Department of Motor Vehicle Records to include the driver's license image of Maryland resident Eric Hageman of Laurel, Maryland, to corroborate my own investigation and eyewitness knowledge, showing he was the person who had broken into my home beginning in August 2006 and had trespassed multiple times after that, after stealing house keys, P.O. box keys, and car keys in the original break-in, which left a broken sliding glass door handle and lock mechanism. In March 2015, I noted a man in a pickup truck who seemed to be following me, stalking me like low-level NSA security goons had in Maryland, and that was from 2005 or 6 until 2009 when they stopped overtly stalking me. Okay. But so jump ahead to 2015, I had been left alone and had moved to Florida to wait for the EEOC case to be adjudicated. So yet I identified, let's see now. In March 2015, I noted a man in a pickup truck who seemed to be following me, stalking me like low-level NSA security goons had in Maryland. I identified them going to work at the NSA security building, so that's how I knew who they were. Yet I was living in Tallahassee, Florida at the time and had not been stalked by NSA in an overt, threatening manner since 2009. A couple weeks later, I again found myself being photo stalked by strangers who identified as working for the Naval Security in Pensacola, Florida, which is about 4 hours away from Tallahassee, I believe. I have a photo of one and a photo of the car of another to include the tag. Note that their headquarters is on Fort Meade, Maryland, co-located with NSA headquarters. After the photo stalking, presumably to use a current photo to direct yet another stalking operation against me, indeed, I suddenly found myself being overtly stalked by the multiple people in early April. Note that the Naval Security Group is nicknamed Silent Warriors due to their expertise in electronic weaponry, such as directed energy weapons and anti-personnel directed energy devices. Interestingly enough, the night before this happened, about a 30 to 60-minute barrage of mystery booming sounds came after dark from the Laura Phipps property a couple miles away on Lake Jackson for no known reason. There were no accompanying lights, which could indicate fireworks, and no known celebration of any kind in the community. It seemed to be a recording of actual military large gun barrages played over enormous speakers for the noise to reach as many people as possible. I called the Leon County Sheriff's Department, LCSD, about the noise and spoke to Deputy Jeffrey Cannon. He informed me that sheriff's deputies had escorted representatives from the NSA, FBI, and other federal authorities through town from a private airport earlier for a special exercise to be held at the Laura Phipps property in cooperation with the FDLE, which is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and the co-located Fusion Center. We discussed the fact that NSA had no facilities nearby, nor did any federal or military entity of any size, and the FBI presence there was almost insignificant. So it made little sense to focus an exercise on such a small and unsophisticated capital city as Tallahassee. He also said that he had been in the military and knew that such recordings as the barrage played the previous night were often used to signal participants in a military exercise spread over a large area that the exercise was beginning.
Take your time, Karen. We're in no rush.
Okay. All right. Second page. All right. From April 2015 through November 2015, I was stalked and harassed in Tallahassee by what appeared to be civilians. The pattern of harassment fit perfectly the previous patterns of stalking harassment engaged in by low-level NSA security goons. It would appear my subpoena upset them. They did not want the burglar tied to NSA. The EEOC judge illegally ignored our subpoena request, however, though the stalking harassment continued and the precise methodology showing it was orchestrated and choreographed like that of NSA security. I concluded they must want me to drop my lawsuit, but I would not. I attempted to file a Florida Sunshine Act request to demand any correspondence, mail, email, phone call records regarding the Leon County Sheriff's Department communication with NSA in regard to me. They initially told me that there were 800 plus pages of corresponding documents in that regard. Despite the state law, the Leon County Sheriff's Department then refused my request unless I coughed up $2,000 for administrative fees, which clearly was beyond outrageous and meant to totally subvert the Florida Sunshine Act. In late November 2015, my parents' home, where I was staying in Florida, was hit overnight with a horrific electronic field projected so strongly into the house that it fried smaller electronics like the router and my cell phone, ruining them, and damaged larger appliances like the refrigerator, dishwasher, and microwave oven. It even made our large adult dogs pee themselves in the night, and it killed my cat. Weeks of nightly attacks became standard. We had an expert electrician examine the home's electrical system, but he found no problem coming from within the house, only unexplained damage from an unknown outside source. We also noted that when the attacks occurred, that not only our cable was completely jammed to include landline phones, but that Comcast reported suddenly having problems affecting 94% of their users in our area, which was the Greenwood Hills area, with those not affected being furthest away from us. They also reported damage to cables and routers like they had never seen before, and stated that they had a record 10 repair vans dispatched to Greenwood Hills in late 2015, early 2016 at one time. As the attacks continued, I noted that men were being let out of a car after dark with a box or an attaché case at the edge of the woods near our home. At dawn, the attacks would cease, and I would then see the same people run out of the woods, then get picked up by a car and driven away. This went on for several weeks. Law enforcement was told, but did nothing. At one point, I went to the Leon County Sheriff's Department and spoke to the duty officer about what was going on. He asked me to repeat my name, and I did. He then walked out to his private car in the parking lot, pulled out a number of manila files, perhaps 12 to 20, thumbed through them, opened up what appeared to be mine, read some of the first document, snapped it shut, saying, "I'm not allowed to help you," then put all the files back in the trunk of his car. Why would law enforcement keep files on people in the trunk of the duty officer's car? Perhaps to circumvent laws requiring law enforcement to be subject to admission to having such files and required to reveal their purpose. No lawyer would know to demand to see records kept in a private car. And who ordered them to hide such records to circumvent the law? The Fusion Center? Does this not amount to an admission of guilt in regard to illegitimate targeting of people? And moving to page 3. All right, in the meantime, I also noted 2 strangers going house to house, though not to ours, in our Greenwood Hills neighborhood, showing what seemed to be badges and being let into the homes. When these strangers returned, they seemed to bring equipment and spent time teaching the residents how to use the unknown equipment, or they themselves were using it from the neighbor's property. Each time this happened, the male and female in their 30s would stay at the homes for several days or weeks. The attacks then started to come from these homes and these people as borne out by special meters, such as the Tri-Field XE100, which I had attained to measure electromagnetic energy. It was off the charts dangerous when these participating line-of-sight homes were subjected to measurements. In one case, the 2 strangers actually were allowed to live in one couple's massive RV in their driveway and power a horrifically strong device from the RV engine. I realized that none of the homes were using their home electricity, but rather RV, car engine, or emergency generators to power the devices, so as to not leave a telltale spike in their own electric bill of the constant attacks. During blackouts, the attacks did not stop, proving alternative energy sources were indeed used. Once several homes were induced to participate, the men running into and out of the woods at dusk and dawn disappeared. They were not needed anymore. Neighbors had been bribed to replace them with attacks from their properties. And here's a note. I did fire a BB gun into the woods where one seemed to be hiding, and within 10 minutes, a car, and I did that several times, but this one time I hit someone apparently. So within 10 minutes, a car sped up to the woods, and a man who was holding a possibly bloody cloth. Now this is, the light is not great, but he was holding a cloth to his head, as well as carrying a box or attaché case, ran out, jumped in the car, and it sped away. So bingo for one of my attempts. In another similarity to NSA's harassment methodology, I overheard one Florida neighbor tell another that I was a pedophile. I was utterly stunned. I never have been, nor ever would be, and you certainly cannot be such a criminal and hold a top secret security clearance 28 years. unless, of course, I guess you're a boss, right? Unless you're at the very top. Um, I never have been, okay, and 28 years. Okay, but this was not the only time I caught wind of this shameful lie coming from NSA. An online friend told me a third party had advised her not to be friends with me because I was a pedophile. Nothing could be further from the truth, and there have been zero incidents that could be misinterpreted as such. I asked her how this third party claimed to know such a thing. The woman had claimed that she had gone to Fort Meade, Maryland, where NSA was located, for a professional symposium and had been told all about me by someone working for NSA, and it appears NSA security. I
Hey,
asked this,
Karen,
yes,
just real
yes.
quick. I'm just letting you know this now. Suddenly, I'm having internet issues on this side. I just tried to post a comment, and it's telling me I'm having lagging internet, which we have Verizon Fios. So
Wow.
just FYI, if we go down this time, it might be on my side, but I'm just letting
Okay.
you know. Just letting you know.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a wave or something. I'll keep
No,
an
I'll
eye.
try. I'll try.
Okay.
It
All
might
right.
just go down though, but
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. Um, let's see now where I was. Let's see now. Okay. Okay.
Shooting BB guns at people that were trying to stalk you.
Well, this goes to the second woman who was trying to tell people I was a pedophile, and I was absolutely
It's their
outraged.
that's their go-to thing right
I,
off the bat. If they
well,
can't put you in the trunk of a car, they go
yeah,
right after you. You're a pedophile. It's the first rule in the NSA handbook, I believe.
it seems like it because it seems to me the better a person you are, the more desperate they are. And that's when they pull out the pedophile accusation,
Right.
because they had nothing they could. I mean, I never drank, I never did drugs, they had nothing. So they went to the absolute worst thing they could think of, apparently. But anyway, the second, okay, this woman who was spreading these rumors had claimed that she had gone to Fort Meade, Maryland, where NSA is located, for a professional symposium and had been told all about me by someone working for NSA. I asked the woman who told me this to provide my lawyer with an affidavit in regard to the NSA smear campaign, and she did. Then this very same baseless lie turns up in Florida out of the blue. Very likely a product of the special exercise NSA was participating in with the Fusion Center and InfraGard. Those are the civilians they pay to stalk, harass, and smear you. In regard to trying to prove the existence of non-normal electromagnetic ionizing radiation fields, I'm sorry, it should be non-ionizing radiation fields that were present, I videotaped the meter going wild as we were under attack and showed it to the Leon County Sheriff's Department deputies, who blew me off, mocked, and insulted me, even when I began getting proof of sudden injury caused by electromagnetic weapons, similar to the weapons used later to attack our diplomats in Cuba in 2017 and China in 2018, and similar to their injuries. But the ignorant and or complicit law enforcement refused to help or even educate themselves or investigate. When I attempted to contact the local and national FBI, I was hung up on if I called and identified myself, and my certified letters never arrived. So I decided to write a report on the domestic terrorism I was witnessing and walk it to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement fusion centers, even though I suspected they were the ones doing it, because they're the only ones who have the purview for this. There's no one else to go to. And so I went to the Fusion Center and asked to speak with people in the domestic terrorism unit, those who advertise, see something, say something, on their billboards. After all, it was their purview and jurisdiction. I wanted to see how they reacted to being asked to do their jobs. In July 2016, I took my written report and went to the FDLE Fusion Center in Tallahassee, Florida. I requested to meet with the appropriate people. I waited in the lobby 30 minutes or so. I had noticed that the covert stalkers who were used to follow me and hit me with directed energy weapons from their cars had ceased hitting me when I drove into the Fusion Center parking lot. They did not aim their weapons into the building either, as where they had never ceased aiming them at me, even when I went to the Leon County Sheriff's Department building or the Tallahassee Police Department building. I sat there 30 minutes or more without being fried for the first time and only time since November 2015, 6 months previous. These weapons cause brain inflammation. and horrific headaches as well as other damage. As I sat waiting, three people, likely in their 30s, came out to meet me. Immediately, I recognized two of them as being the strangers in my neighborhood, inducing and instructing neighbors on how to use electronic weapons to harass, harm, and murder me. Their names were Annie White, who was identified as an FBI employee, and Mr. Kennedy. I did not catch the second woman's name. I did not let on that I knew exactly who they were. I introduced myself as a retired national security intelligence analyst and offered my written report to them in regard to domestic terrorist incidents and people involved by name and address in Tallahassee. Mr. Kennedy waved me off with a smug, "Not interested." I stated, "So you're telling me that despite your see something, say something motto, you are refusing to even look at a report written for you by a 28-year retired intelligence analyst who worked for the National Security Agency?" He again smirked and said, "Not interested." I then said, "Covert, banned, highly sophisticated electronic weapons are being used illegally on civilians. You do not care about that. They are categorized as weapons of mass destruction, and anyone in possession of them is considered a terrorist. And you're not interested?" He again obnoxiously laughed and said, "Tell it to the FCC if you're having problems with your electricity." Then he and the other women turned and left. I left the building, left the parking lot, and was immediately followed by stalkers aiming electronic weapons at me from their cars. It has not stopped for any significant amount of time since then. I believe the Fusion Center villains and the stalkers know exactly how dangerous the devices are, and the InfraGard civilian mercenary stalkers used for deniability are 100% forbidden to aim them at their Fusion Center masters. I left Florida and returned to Maryland in December 2016. Again, Fusion Center personnel have visited several neighbors here who appear to be involved in the continued contract issued by crooks within the NSA to harass, harm, and murder me to cover up their own crimes and give the Fusion Centers yet another innocent scapegoat to attack to justify their unjustifiable parasitic and anti-American existence. And that's the end of my affidavit. But I would add that with my EEO lawsuit that had been on file since 2010, excuse me, I'm going to get a drink. That lawsuit had sat there waiting for a hearing. And in 2018, the judge was feeling pressure to do something with it because it was the very last whistleblower lawsuit that the EEOC had. And it had been sitting there 8 years, and people were starting to ask questions as to when it was going to be heard. So the judge apparently took it from wherever they keep it. And somehow or another, every bit of my evidence was stolen from it. The case was gutted. So the judge, which is Judge Lawrence Gallagher of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, notified us that since we had no evidence, he was dismissing my case. My lawyer, of course, was absolutely shocked because the EEOC has a responsibility to make sure cases stay as safe as possible. And she had never heard of a case being gutted, especially in possession of the people who are supposed to adjudicate it. So she appealed and she said, I easily have copies of everything in Mrs. Stewart's file. I can easily replace them and send them. And he said, no, your appeal is dismissed and your case is dismissed. So they were so desperate that I not bring up the Mossad connection and the honeypot connection. And they were unable, despite their best efforts, to kill me by inducing a heart attack or a brain hemorrhage, that they said, well, we got to steal all her evidence and sidetrack her that way.
How did you protect yourself from this, or how are you protecting yourself from this? Is it working at all?
Well, I'm still here is all I can tell you, but I do have damage, and the damage is not something that occurs all at once. And I don't think anybody's ever come up with all this type of health damage in a very short time. But I learned very quickly. One of the first things that I did was I went across the house from my parents so that they would be safe. Because it seemed like they could pinpoint me in the house. So I got as far away from them as possible. I ended up sleeping in the laundry room for a while. Because guess what? You've got a huge washing machine, you've got a dryer, and nearby their laundry room was the refrigerator and stove. And so I had a lot of metal around me. And so I very quickly had to kind of dredge up odd knowledge and then try to figure out how to shield myself. And I ended up, a lot of the stuff, what you're looking for when you shield from this garbage is you're looking for highly reflective things like mylar, but also mirrors, and especially mirrors with the old fashioned good silver backing, and face them outward from you, face them toward where you think the attacks are coming from. So you've got reflective material. One exceedingly good reflective material is shiny copper. And yes, I see you put Y shield. It wasn't my house, so I couldn't paint it.
I hear you. I hear
but,
you. But people have had really
yeah.
good luck with this. The subscriber sent me a link to this earlier. But go ahead.
Excellent. And at that point in time, I started collecting stuff. I mean, I started collecting Teflon. Teflon is actually good. It's a little hard to use. You have to figure out how the heck am I going to use Teflon baking pans, but you figure it out. Cast iron. What else? There's something called a Yoshi mat that you get at Bed Bath and Beyond, if you can say that on your program. It's a grill mat. You put vegetables on your grill and you don't want them sliding between the bars, and you put a grill mat there, and it's heat resistant up to like 500 degrees, especially the copper infused ones. And the Teflon infused is better than regular Teflon. And there is something called a polycarbonate panel that you can get at Lowe's, I believe, and the carbon in it actually absorbs the heat. Now, anything that aim at you is harming you because of the heat that it generates in you. It can actually fry your organs, and then you get necrosis, you get dead and dying organs, and then you get sepsis. So that will kill you. And like I pointed out in the previous attempt at the interview, that there was a lady in the TI community who died just of that, and it was this last fall. So that was horrifically tragic. But she had reported that somebody had broken into her home, stolen her debit card, and then all of a sudden she was getting lethal attacks. And unfortunately, a delivery man saw her through the window lying on the ground and called somebody. And they brought her to the hospital, but it was too late. She had been damaged so badly that she got sepsis and passed away.
So you belong to like a TI support group. Was it online, or was it someplace you could actually meet people in person?
Well, there are various places. You get various group emails, and then on my Facebook, it actually has gone from my private Facebook for about half a dozen friends and family to having probably 2,300 people on it, which are probably 99% targeted individuals. So we try to pass and share information on Facebook, and there are other places. There are several places. There are several organizations that try to put people together, and several email groups. So it's really a good effort, and we compare notes and try to help each other and try to share information with the non-TI public, because you know what? They keep putting people on the watch list. It's growing and growing, and you don't have to be a whistleblower. You don't have to be. I've talked to people who are stay-at-home moms, and they're like, what the heck's going on? And so they are throwing anybody of convenience. And what occurs to me is that sometimes these are vengeance, like with me, they're trying to shut me up because they don't want this to be known, what I found out to be known. But there are other people, it seems like they're just doing experiments on them. And with fusion centers, they have quote unquote InfraGard and quote unquote partners. And these partners could be any type of like a medical laboratory or a contractor who says, hey, we got this brand new weapon. We need about 20 people in your area to try it out on. You got to throw 20 people on the watch list, declare them terrorists, and then strip them secretly of their constitutional, human, and civil rights so we can attack them with these weapons. Because after all, George Bush said, if you're not with us, you're against us, and we reserve the right to kill you. But
Right.
he didn't
People
say
weren't
how.
they weren't hearing him for the severity of what he was saying at the time. Everybody was too busy thinking about the American flag and Al Qaeda. Karen, let me ask you, if you don't mind, could you reiterate for the people that are watching now that didn't see the live stream that went south on us last night? Can you reiterate why they actually went after you in the first place?
Okay. All right.
Would you mind?
No, I don't mind at all.
All right.
What had happened was that, again, I was an intelligence analyst and it's more or less a reporter. You know, you do research, you report. Somebody says, hey, we are very interested in the trade deal between China and Singapore. And you have to research that and write reports on it. Or they say, we want to know what's going on between these two countries diplomatically, or we want to know about the new Chinese tank, or we want to know about the new Russian submarine. I mean, it basically you're researching and writing reports to the appropriate people, you know. So that was my job. And I ended up for a few years being in a place called Weapons and Space, the Weapons and Space Directorate. And believe me, I'm not technical, but I actually did have rocket scientists to consult. so they kind of guided me through that, and they were happy for their help because they like to play with their toys and they don't like to write reports. But anyway, I got wind of the Russians selling, a private Russian company selling jammers to the Iraqis just before we were slated to invade Iraq. Well, the jammers were supposed to jam our missiles as we as we invaded, and we did some research and found out that the jammers were exceedingly good. You know, they weren't Iraqi, made in the desert on the back of a camel type of stuff. You know, they were exceedingly good. The Russians were doing it, and they were basically had made them to specifically jam American weapons. So we found out that that was a danger, and if we invaded, our missiles like Tomahawks could actually hit civilians or our own people. So this was exceedingly important to figure out. And so my 6 months of reports enabled a team of people to essentially figure out these jammers, figure out how to destroy them, and figure out how to save the invasion. Now, if anybody was old enough to remember, in 2003, when we did invade, several of the Tomahawks went off course, but were quickly, basically everything was quickly regained as far as control, because what happened was that we had invaded when there were 2 or 3 jammers left that special forces hadn't yet destroyed. So it was my reports that got everything really kind of saved the day and kept a lot of people from being harmed. So that got written up in a few months for the next promotion cycle. And what happened was they took my name off the write-up and put this other woman's name on it, submitted it to the promotion board, and I got the word back that I had not been selected for promotion. And I said, okay, well, that's the way it goes. I was disappointed, but I continued. And then about a year later, I found out from a promotion board member who came over to talk to me, and I never met her before. She said, Karen, on your project, who did this, this, and this? And she named certain things. And I said, I did that. And then she continued to name stuff, and I continued to say I did that, but for like 1 or 2 exceptions where a coworker of mine had done something. And she said, well, what did Rita do on your project? And I said, Rita was never on the project. And she said, oh my God. And then she went to explain. She said, Karen, last year we promoted Rita for your work. She got a double promotion from GS-12 to GS-14 because we were told that was all her work. And I was horrified. And I started asking questions. And as soon as I started asking questions, one of the managers, who was her friend and knew what was going on, made some kind of bizarre false accusation against me that ended me up with a lie detector. And in fact, what had happened was I walked into the office one morning, and this woman was a woman manager who was basically Rita's best friend. She screamed across the office and she said, "Hey, Karen, your article about NSA computers was in the newspaper." And of course, I never said anything to any newspaper about NSA computers. And certainly you don't go to the newspaper with a damn thing about NSA. So I went over to her and I said, "What in the world are you talking about?" And of course, she had screamed that across the room for everyone to hear. And I went over and she whispered to me, she said, "Oh, I was just kidding." So I get back to my desk, and 15 minutes later, one of the people in the room obviously had been fooled into calling security to say, "We have a leaker. We have somebody who has leaked top secret information to a newspaper, apparently." Of course, there was no such article, but they didn't know that. So I ended up being ordered to take a polygraph, which pissed me off, but I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. So I just figured it was an inconvenience for that morning. So I went there, and the guy escorted me from the waiting room back to an exam room. And just before we went into the exam room, he started screaming at me. You don't scream at somebody before a polygraph because that upsets them and it skews the polygraph.
Big time. Big time.
Big time. So he walks into the room after screaming at me, and I walked in reluctantly behind him. I said, "What was that?" Now, inside these rooms, you have mirrors and you have recording devices. And he said, "Well, what is what? What was what?" I said, "You just screamed at me in the hall outside." He said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Yes, you most certainly did." I said, "I really don't want to take a polygraph from you or this morning." I said, "I'll come back this afternoon. I'll come back tomorrow. I'll come back next week. But I don't want to take a polygraph from you right now because I'm upset and I don't know what is wrong with you." And so at that point, he said, "You will take a polygraph or I'll have the FBI come and take you into DC and put you in confinement." And I thought to myself, this has got to be a bluff. But in case it wasn't, I said, "Well, crap, I said, "All right, I'll take it, but I can't pass it with being this upset." And I showed him my hand because it was shaking because I was so upset. And he ignored that. I took the polygraph and I flunked everything, probably including my name, you know.
Wow.
So and that was the first time in over 25 years that I had any problem with a polygraph.
Well, the deal is, in my experience and the people I've spoken to over the years, and my own personal experience, when they're using a polygraph on you, they're trying to set you up. Because a polygraph could go whatever way the person reading the polygraph wants it to go.
Yeah. There's a big controversy where that's kind of the polygraph is all they have, and it's not good. But, at that point in time, they called me a few days later and said, "Well, you flunked." And I said, "Well, no joke. When you scream at people, they tend to flunk the polygraph." And they said, "Okay, you've got basically when you're accused of something, you've got 3 polygraphs, for you to have a chance to rectify the situation." So they said, "Okay, we're going to give you a polygraph next month." And I said, "That's fine." And so I went back the next month and took it, and I felt like everything went well. And then after a few days, they said, "Well, we're going to count it as indeterminate. And so we're going to have you come back for a third." And I was irritated. And I didn't know at the time the reason that they were calling it indeterminate was that I had flunked the first one, then passed the second. So they wanted a third one. So I said, so I went back for the third, and I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for the polygraph examiner when a huge man, and he must have been like football size, right? He comes up to me, towers over me, and says, "Well, so this is the famous Karen Stewart." And I'm like, "What the hell?" And he just kind of took me by surprise. Well, what was he doing? He was trying to upset me again. So I hadn't a chance to say a word to him because I was kind of stunned when the woman who was giving me the polygraph came into the waiting room and said, "We're ready for you." So I just kind of glared at him and went back. And she said, "Do you mind if we have an interview before I give you a polygraph? Because I want to know what the heck is going on." And I said, "No, that's not a problem. I don't, that's fine." And she said, "I have looked through your record." And she said, "You are squeaky clean. We don't have a problem with you. I have no idea why you can't pass, why you didn't pass the other polygraph." And I said, "Well, I can tell you exactly why." So we sat down and had a 2-hour interview, the end of which I took a polygraph. And they're not supposed to tell you anything in the polygraph, after you've taken it. They just evaluate it, and then somebody calls you in a few days. But as I was leaving the room, she said, "This is Stuart." She said, "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you passed. We don't have a problem with you. I just wanted to let you know, since you've been through hell, for I don't know what reason." And so I said, "Well, thank you very much." And so I did feel relieved, and they called me later and said, "Okay, you passed 2 out of 3, so we're good with it." But they weren't good with it. They had been trying to fabricate that as a reason to fire me and had lost that round. The next thing was that they ended up, I guess, suppressing my next chance at promotion. So I said, all right, that's it. These people are in weapons of space, are trying to destroy my career. And they were even trying to get me arrested for something they know I didn't do. So I'm transferring out to another directorate, which I did. And in the summer of 2006, I went to a new office, learned the job, spent a couple months training on it. And at that point in time, I said, I'm going to call the inspector general. And I'm going to tell him all about this, because this is just not right, And so as soon as I did, the gentleman who was the liaison for the new office said, "Oh, this is exactly why we're here. Tell me all about this. Get more information for me, more detail, and get back to me." And so I said, "Sure," because I was excited somebody cared, And so I got names and dates and everything more specifically for him and sent it to him. And he didn't respond. And so I ended up calling him. And he said, "Well, I spoke to the inspector general," which was George Ellard. And he said, "We don't care." He said, "I don't care why anybody gets a promotion. It's all subjective anyway. So we don't want to hear it." And I just was stunned. I mean, the guy had told me that in the previous phone call, this is why we exist. So this type of crap doesn't go on. So at that point, I didn't know what to say. And I kind of didn't do anything for a few days, just trying to figure out what in the world is going on. And the same guy I talked to came into my office and talked to my managers. And he seemed like he was furious about something. So my office manager came out and she said, "Karen, why are you pursuing this thing with your stolen promotions?" And I said, "For justice." Because he was trying to get them to lean on me and not talk about it, which I was absolutely stunned. If it wasn't anything, then why would he come and threaten them? So that started, after I went to the inspector general, they demanded I see a psychologist associated with NSA security, not the med center, but NSA security. And I found out that she had been at a previous facility and had gotten into a lot of trouble for using their drugs on duty to party with other psychologists.
Unbelievable.
She was in ill repute and was not employable anywhere but NSA. But NSA wanted her. Why? Because they could tell her what to do. And she was not an honest psychologist. So she called me down. And before I even sat in the chair, she said, "Well, I hear you're paranoid." And I said, "What?" And so she said, "Yeah, you think people have stolen your promotion." And I just was absolutely stunned. I said, "Well, what do you know about it?" "Nothing. I just hear you're paranoid." And so I said, "Well, I'm not. And if you check my, you take a psychological evaluation to be hired by NSA, and then you are reinvestigated every 5 to 7 years. As far as like, have you turned into a drug person? Have you turned into a gambler? Is there anything in your life that is bad that would reflect badly on us or indicate that you've become a spy or you've become a crook or something like that?" And so I had always passed all of these tests, no problem whatsoever. And then she just tells me, because I believe someone else who told me that my promotions were stolen, that I was paranoid and delusional, which was absolutely ludicrous. So I said, "You know what? In 2005, I took an overall assessment by the head of the NSA security psychology department, and he basically assessed me as one of the most emotionally and mentally strong people he had ever met. So I said, "If you're trying to make me out to be suddenly crazy," I said, "good luck with that." And I left. So they took it as a challenge and started the NSA low-level security goons stalking and harassing me and spreading rumors about me in my workspace. And I had friends who told me, they said, well, they came around for one of those routine reassessments. And I said, okay, that's fine. And they said, no, you don't understand. They're telling us what to say. They're trying to put words in our mouth that's nothing like you. And one of the gentlemen I had worked with at in Weapons and Space and knew my work, he said, Karen, I almost got into a fist fight with the guy who came to talk to me because he kept saying, that you were this and you were that. And I said, what did he say? He said, I'm not going to tell you because you're going to get mad as hell. And he said, but I defended you. I said, she is nothing of the kind. He said, where in the hell are you getting this crap? And he was trying to say that I was saying it. And he said, we almost came to blows. He said, I just wanted to tell you something is horribly wrong. So they were trying desperately to smear me as a means to fire me and get me to shut up about what was going on with the honeypot. So that went on from, they were stalking, harassing, and slandering and libeling me from 2006 to 2009. In 2009, they poisoned a family dog. I think I said this on the other program. It was a beautiful 13-month-old Newfoundland. And you know what gorgeous dogs those are.
Unbelievable.
They gave him a neurotoxin inside a piece of meat or something, and he couldn't recover from it. So we had to put him down. And at the same time, they started doing coordinated aggressive driving attacks on me as I went to and from work. Well, they could have killed me and they could have killed anybody around me. So at that point in time, in 2009, I finally did say something to him because I ignored all the stupidity, you know. And I guess that frustrated them because they wanted me to go, oh, people are following me. It's like, no, these dumbasses forget to take their badges off. So I know exactly who the hell they are, you know. So I just was ignoring them. But when they started trying to endanger my life, I basically went to them. I said, what the hell are you doing? I haven't done anything wrong. I said, and you're endangering my life and being stupid. So when I did that, they took my clearance away and they said, oh, you've really gone crazy, and put me to work in a non-cleared position with the travel agency that basically works with NSA. And the dummies put me in a place that was across the parking lot from the NSA security building, shared the same parking lot. So I started seeing the people who had stalked and harassed me for the last 3 years. So I started taking down their license plate numbers. And I went to the police, and the police questioned NSA security, and they panicked and came to me and said, oh, we've decided that you're crazy and dangerous, and you'll probably shoot the place up. So we're going to put you on admin leave.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, where did you get that? So, and this was like the day after I went to the police. So, figured the connection there. So they put me on admin leave, and I went home. And as soon as it was like mid-afternoon on March 13th, I think that I went home early. And as I get home, there's somebody stealing mail out of my mailbox. Hadn't expected me home. So I told my husband later, I said, for months we've been saying, what the hell's wrong with the mail? It's coming late, too late for some bills, or it's coming opened. So we had no idea if, the post office had lost their little minds. But what they were doing was they were stealing my mail, opening it, and then putting it back when they got around to it. And we'd caught them.
Karen, I'm going to play that video clip for the people that didn't see it of the meter that you had running in your house.
Okay.
Where it goes completely off the charts.
Yes.
All right, stand by 1 sec. Let me get this up.
And let me say it oscillates because, guys, if that electromagnetic force were constant and not oscillating, we would be fried into dust.
It's unbelievable. It just sits there for a minute and then it goes. I mean, it pegs out and stays there.
And the whining is the weapon.
Wow.
Danger zone.
I'm familiar with that.
The whining.
Well, I'm familiar with the way it keeps going back and forth, like chattering, chat, bang, 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 bang. I've felt that before.
Yep. Yep. It can come in waves.
Wow.
Like I said, if they didn't oscillate it, they would just fry people. And, the police would come out and find desiccated, a desiccated human being that they could just put in a dust bag. So it's doing damage to your organs. It's basically inflaming your brain, and this is very dangerous because if your brain is inflamed, it'll swell, and you'll die. I have had bleeding in the brain with no external injury. My retinas have been scarred. My heart has been damaged. And let me tell you, this old woman was in pretty damn good shape until that started. I walked all the time. I could walk anybody else under the table. People would say, Karen, stop. We have to rest, but I could walk for hours.
Karen, let me ask you this because a lot of people ask this question. Why do you think they decided to target you as opposed to just have some unfortunate accident happen?
I'm not really quite sure. I mean, I think they love the idea of torturing you to punish you for daring to say anything.
Well, here's my take on it. People ask that all. I mean, well, they would have just taken her out. Well, here's the deal. Like George W. Bush said, if you're not with us, you're an enemy. Well, they can't kill 3/4 of the country and people not notice. So they just torture them. And these are sick people. Anybody that would engage in this type of activity against another human being, they're sick. And these people are sick. They love doing this. There's so many targeted individuals that it's insane. And I didn't believe it at all until it happened to me. And it scared me to death. Absolutely. And I mean, people witnessed this happening because I thought I was just losing my mind. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I'm so
know what
sorry.
I'm saying. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely horrible.
Oh, it is.
What did you do to protect yourself in your car? Someone keeps asking that. I keep missing it. So.
Oh, that's okay. That's a challenge. Now I have an SUV and I discussed things with my brother. He helped me take the SUV back hatch off. We basically sprayed the interior metal with grill paint that you get either at Lowe's or Home Depot, and that's heat resistant up to about 1,200 to 2,000 degrees. So we sprayed the metal with the grill paint, and then I actually put shiny copper metal plates in between the metal of the hatchback and the interior plastic. So then we closed it back up again, and I got heat resistant window tinting for the windows. And if you have to, you can put other types of stuff inside the car. But that kind of made me bulletproof driving, because I will tell you, and I probably said this on the last time, they do take some of these devices, are small enough to hook into a car engine and run them from the car engine and follow you. They love to tailgate you with those things because they think they're frying you with them, and they are. But if it's a 4-cylinder, it's strong. If it's a 6-cylinder, it's stronger. If it's an 8-cylinder, I've had to pull off the road without my shielding. Until I figured out how to shield, I would absolutely have to get off the road and let the car pass that was hitting me with that type of engine behind the weapon. So those are working pretty
you were
well.
saying last night that there were times when other vehicles actually had the device that was targeting you in them.
Yes.
That's insane. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, because what they don't want you to do is get in your car and get away from your house, because they've taken measures to have your home triangulated. What they won't like to do is get somebody who is line of sight, because they don't want to shoot through somebody else's house or apartment, because then they have a witness, because they have those people getting sick and injured. Okay. So what they try to do is line up line of sight houses, multiple, like 3, 4, maybe 5, in case, house 2, the occupants are on vacation or something. They want 3 houses at least covering you, hitting you at the very same time, so that the energy from all 3 of the houses triples inside of your house. So you could be on the outside walking past a targeted person's house and not feel it. But if you come inside their house, you're getting hit with triple the strength. So they're very calculating in everything that they do. And then if you get in your car and go somewhere, they don't want you to escape being hit with electromagnetic radiation, because they don't want your cells to regenerate and heal. They want your cells to degenerate and you to die as soon as possible from what a coroner might think is natural causes, but they have been induced. Again, I've had bleeding in the brain, so it was very near to having a stroke, and
How
heart
did you
damage.
find out about that? How did you know that you had excuse me, a hemorrhage?
I actually went to a neurologist because they were hitting the house with these weapons, and I was getting the brain inflammation. And I discovered quickly on that painkillers did not a damn thing. And I started to take anti-inflammatory medication, and they were helping. I said, well, this is very dangerous. So I went to a neurologist, and he took, I don't know whether it was an MRI or what it was, but he said, well, I see you have bleeding in the brain. And of course, it shocked the heck out of me. And I kind of cautiously told him what was going on, but he didn't believe me. So I do now have some doctors who are looking into this and listening to me. They're kind of shocked, but they're not saying we don't believe you. They're saying, well, we're with you. We're not quite sure what's going on, but we'll support you as best we can. And one of them even had looked up some things on the internet. And the next time I came in to see her, she gave me a hug. And she said, I'm so sorry what you're going through.
Wow. It's amazing. All the information's out there, but people don't, because of the norms, because nobody wants to be, labeled or anything like that. I mean, I know you've run into this. Nobody wants to look at anything other than what the mainstream puts out.
Exactly. Well,
It's sad. It's sad.
Well, police, what can I even say about the police? Because you always want to support police who are out there laying their
I
lives
try
on
to
the
do it
line
all the
for
time.
you, but they're also, when they get these stories, they are told, the low-level police are told, if you hear this, this, and this, the person's crazy, just blow them off. And they refuse to look up anything or exercise their minds at all. And they become mocking and abusive.
Yeah, you're not the first
So
I've heard that from. That's happened to a lot of people. So
it's shameful.
what's the most effective thing that you found? I mean, some people are asking, didn't you just try to buy one of those EMP shields that they're always selling? Because there's a lot of places selling them right now.
Yeah, I'd love to when I have the money. There's like a whole house EMP device that you hook into your fuse box. So I'm saving up to see if we can do that. And they also have them for cars.
Who makes that, Karen?
I would have to look that up. I'll
Well,
have to
look
maybe
that
get
up
back
and
to you.
send it to me, and I'll get a hold of them and see if we can't make that happen for you.
Oh, thank you.
We got a little bit of reach here, so we can. I mean, it's what you're doing is not normal. As far as most people won't say anything about this, they'll just go to their grave with it one way or the other. So there's a lot of us here that appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I thank you. At a certain point, of course, I found out it wasn't just me, and I started meeting other people to whom this was being done. I found out the fusion center connection, found out the whole damn thing's a racket. And I said, all right, because you get depressed and you think, well, I'm just going to have to live with this and I'm just screwed, pardon the language. But then when I found out it was being done to maybe hundreds of thousands of other people, then I just got really pissed. And I said, all right, that's it. I'm going to expose this, because this cannot stand in any country, especially this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of those EMP setups that are complete and total nonsense, because who's going to listen to someone that says, I'm a targeted individual, I bought an EMP shield and I'm still targeted? They're going to go, yeah, you're still crazy. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what,
I know a couple of people that actually make these things for real, and then they show how they work. So show me what you're talking about and we'll get that squared away. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was going to say the things that I have seen that I was impressed with actually say that they can protect your home against an EMP explosion. I mean, if you wanted to take out the United States as far as electricity goes, you would get an airliner, you would put a tactical nuke on it, and you would send it to about, a mile over Nebraska, and you'd set it off. And you would wipe out every electrical device in the United States.
Well, there's a reason they haven't bothered. They just haven't bothered to upgrade the electrical structure. They're always saying it's so vulnerable to attack, but meanwhile, we have to send the same amount of money to some other country this week because we need to spread democracy. You know what I mean? It's just it's ridiculous. They're setting us up for a fall, is what it is. After they get all the. I mean, I realize that you worked for the NSA, so you must have had. I mean, I'm sure this whole thing has turned you sour, but you must have had some belief in God and country like everyone else. But it's corrupt. It's been infiltrated on every level, and they don't care anymore. The justice system, everything is just a joke now. It's a big club, and most of us aren't in it anymore.
You're exactly right. I was thoroughly disgusted. And I'll tell you, I had an interest in foreign languages, all right, and didn't know quite what to do with it. I majored in foreign languages, basically mostly German, and then I had some Russian, and I minored or co-majored in fine art. Well, fine art, I wasn't finding any kind of jobs, and so I said, all right, let's go with the foreign languages. Where can I work? And the NSA turned up. I had an uncle in military intelligence. They said, why don't you try NSA? Because, that's where you'll get to, translate and even learn more foreign languages. And so I applied to them and they accepted me. And as far as I was concerned, with my bad vision, because I have terrible vision, I was doing the next best thing to going into the military and serving my country. I was going into the civilian sector to serve my country. And then this turns on me and I find out that part of NSA is just the mafia. And then, all of CIA almost is. And so many of these federal agencies have turned against us on purpose. It's not the incompetence that you imagine.
Absolutely.
It's planned.
To the choir. It's not, it's beyond incompetence. They're using the guise of incompetence to get away with their evil agenda. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. They've shown it too many times.
Yes. It's treason by subversion.
Exactly. All right. Everyone's asking about the fusion centers. I don't know if we got to that yesterday. I don't remember. I've had a busy couple of days, but I had to get you back on before I hit the road because I felt bad that you got shut down last night, but no one's been shut down. It's either we lost the live stream entirely or not. I mean, wow. I never lost a guest and then couldn't get a hold of him via email afterwards. I tried you like 300 times. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Because I kept looking.
Oh, I've got it. I've got him right here. I emailed you. I don't know how many times. I emailed you about 16 times. I even brought the live stream up again. Nada.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Because I kept looking. Oh my gosh. Yeah, something happened. Something extraordinary. Well, in regard to fusion centers, basically I tell people the main chain of command is Department of Homeland Security and FBI created fusion centers. And then the fusion centers pay mercenaries that are called InfraGard, and sometimes they're called other types of things. But that's the main chain of command. But you can have DEA and you can have everybody sending representatives to a fusion center. So you can get input from, there was one case that was handled by Bernhoft Law, and they're a tax law firm. And they had a guy who owned a drywall company. And the IRS took a look at him and said, oh, well, this guy's made some really good money. We think we'll take it from him. He hadn't done anything wrong, mind you, but they wanted to take over his business just to steal it. So they started accusing him of things, and he hired Bernhoft Law. And during their discovery period, what they found out was that these agencies, or anybody from these agencies, or anybody affiliated, one of the good old boys club, basically can say, hey, Joe Smith over here has some property I'd like. We need you to fabricate accusations against him to send to the fusion center nearest him to have them stalk, harass, and smear him. And then he'll be so desperate to get out from under this seizure of his property, under these false allegations, that he'll settle with us and give them maybe they'll give him $1 million of his $2 million, or maybe he'll give him $1 million of his $1.5 million. So they're doing that. They're contracting to hit people to seize their assets, is what the Bernhoft Law Group found out. So they're putting contracts on people and having their lives destroyed for money. And they're also, like I brought up before, you may have a contractor who comes to, the fusion center in Iowa or New York or somewhere like that, and says, hey, we got this brand new weapon, we need to test it out on 20 to 100 people, so throw 20 to 100 people onto the terrorist watch list, declare them non-citizens, non-humans, and we'll be able to legally kill them secretly.
And what's funny about what you just said? What's funny about what you just said is I'm still watching the chat on my channel, which I really like to think that 95% people are awake and understand how things work. They're still saying that Donald Trump's going to fix this somehow. If we've got elements that are literally putting people on a terrorist watch list so they can take their belongings and put them in fusion centers, we've lost the boat. You know what I'm saying? Like it's this. The foxes are watching the hen house. There's no turning this thing around. This is ugly. When the NSA is torturing their own people, we're screwed.
Well, yeah, you hate
You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on.
I do. I mean, it reminds me of a person who was telling me about a relative who has brain cancer, and he was telling me, he said it's bad enough she has brain cancer, but it's not a tumor that they can go in and take out. It's a million tiny tumors that have totally infiltrated the brain, so there's no way to get them out.
Right.
So that kind of reminds me of this cabal of people who decided to sell out the United States. They have infiltrated everything, and to get them out will be a miracle. It really will be. I mean, we have to pray that it can be done, but it will be one heck of a feat,
I agree, but I don't see it happening. All I'm seeing is I don't see anything getting better whatsoever. People are just getting more distracted. They're not paying attention. The chasm between the people that were going to wake up and understand things like what are happening to you are happening and just not caring is getting wider and wider. Everyone is totally stuck in the mainstream media, entertainment, materialism, and just running on the hamster wheel. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
and
like
more undeclared wars keep happening. It just keeps, we're spreading democracy everywhere, which just turns out killing more people and costing Americans money. And no one seems to care.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, it makes me sick that I helped with the invasion. It makes me ill.
I tried to re-enlist.
Total...
I tried to re-enlist when the towers went down. I'm glad it didn't go through. I'm glad it didn't go through because hindsight's 2020. If you know now what you knew then, I'm sure you wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean?
It makes me sick that they have these wars on false premises.
We killed 1 million plus people in Iraq.
1 million.
And it was a straight. I mean, this was the first time while the war was going on, they admitted that it was all a lie. Oh, actually, they didn't have anything to do with it, but the war just kept moving forward. Usually we don't find out for 2-3 decades till, like Vietnam.
Yeah.
At any rate, Karen, are we good here? Because I got stuff I got to get done. Unless you got something else you got to share, but I need you to email me and send me the information on that EMP shield because I happen to know a couple of people that build big ones, serious ones, and if you need one, we'll get you one.
Well, I appreciate that more than you know.
Well, I've been in your shoes. I don't know if it was quite the same scale, but every single solitary night at 12:23. I would wake up. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I felt like I was getting electrocuted. Sometimes my skin was burning. Sometimes my computers were freaking out.
Yes.
And then, I mean, this went on for a year. I just thought I was losing my mind. My ex is a medical professional at a large hospital in Boston, and she saw it happening. And she said, dude, sometimes I thought you were going to level. Sometimes you were shaking so violently, I thought you were going to levitate out of the bed. And I've been clean for 12 years. So I wasn't drunk or high or none of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel it for you big time.
I've had people affected who were around me. I mean, there was a friend of mine who was a psychologist, and I was telling her about this because we kind of eased into the friendship. And she, of course, is thinking, man, she seems so normal for the last 3 years. What is she talking about? And then we were sitting outside at her house, and somebody hit her with a directed energy weapon. They were aiming at me and missed.
It happens. That was the one thing that some people saw the video and they're like, oh, the dog seemed to be very calm. Well, the dog, these are very precise weapons. These are laser precise weapons for the most part, depending on the operator. You know what I mean? Like they can hit you in a crowd of people and no one will know what the hell's going on except you.
Well, let me tell you very quickly.
Have at it.
Um,
You're in no rush. You have at it.
yeah, very, very quickly. One of the things they do when they decide that they're targeting you is they will, and they can use a frequency to put people to sleep in the house. Okay. They can, I mean, they don't even need to dump poison or any type of chemical into your, uh, like air conditioner or something, but they can use a frequency to put every single living thing in your house to sleep. And I had lost hours in Florida. There was one morning that not only I woke up at 11 o'clock, and I never wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning. Um, I'm an early riser, but not only did I sleep till 11, but the dogs slept to 11, you know, and I think my parents actually were out of town for a while. But I said, this is impossible. The dogs would have peed themselves, before 11, but they were all asleep until I woke them up. And I think that's the time at which and I found out later, they put a chip behind each ear and in your nasal passage so they can triangulate on your brain, because this is trying to destroy your brain. Okay. They're sending signals basically to fry your brain and kill you, give you a stroke and have you die. But they also later try to get nanoparticles into you. And they did this by using, I think, what is called Raytheon's Ravenclaw, which is something that you can use to target somebody by their brain frequency, but you can aim the Raven's Claw at any organ in their body and destroy it. They can harm you, they can hurt you there, or they can destroy an organ. And what they did to me after getting in the 3 chips, um, and they put a GPS in you as well, to make sure that you can't escape no matter where you go. They know exactly where you are on the face of the earth. But they got me into the hospital by hitting my kidney with the Raven's Claw. And of course, I thought I had a kidney stone. I get there and they take x-rays and they say, oh, yeah, you have a kidney stone. And it's about, this size, et cetera, et cetera. And the doctor threw up an x-ray and he's pointing to it. And then he said something they didn't expect him to say. He said, oh, I see you've had an organ removed. And I said, what? He said, yeah, you've had surgery and you've had an organ removed, which I don't know whether he meant gallbladder or what. And I said, no, I've never had surgery. And he said, well, then this can't possibly be your x-ray. I said, no, it can't. So they had got me in there on the false pretenses of a kidney stone and put an IV in me. And what do you want to make a bet? The IV was full of nano.
Wow.
Because he had said before, he had said at the beginning, he said, it's unfortunate, but you'll probably pass this kidney stone in the next week. Well, that was 4 years ago. I've yet to pass a kidney stone.
That is crazy. That's totally crazy.
Yeah, they tag you. They GPS tag you. They triangulate on your brain, and then they put nano in you so that when they hit you with the directed energy weapon, you're fried. But the person next to you might be a little uncomfortable, but they're not frying like you are, because nano picks up the weapon and reflects it into your body. It increases the effect of the weapon.
Wow. Yeah, we've gone over that pretty much ad nauseum. The patents, everything for that stuff is out, and it's old. It's as old as I am. It's been around 50 years. So they've been working on all this stuff for a long time. And it's no coincidence that people suddenly start getting sleep paralysis. You know what I mean? Sleep paralysis popped up the same time as Morgellons disease and targeted individuals. And there's a lot of people, man, a lot of people that are in the same boat, but none of them with your credentials. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if I can use my credentials to make people listen, that's what I'm doing.
It's sad to say you're going to catch flack from it. Some people are going to be like, well, why did you ever work for the NSA? Because everyone doesn't know everything all the time, but they learn as time goes by. Sometimes the hard way, But I got to tell you what, I mean, there's a lot of people in here that are recognizing how brave you are. You got a lot of balls, Karen. You definitely do.
Well, thank you. People have said you're brave. I said, I'm not really as brave as I am just damn pissed.
Well,
if
that's what it takes, have at it. I've never been braver when I was, it's worked for me too. I don't know how to say that correctly. I've never been more brave when I was really pissed. How about that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's righteous indignation,
Well said. Well said. Because I wouldn't have thought of that till after I hung up. I would have been like, righteous indignation. I should have thought of that. I didn't even say it right this time.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you
Anytime.
letting me
You've got,
come
like
on
I
and
said,
tell
you've got
people.
my number. So if you need, hit me up. As long as we can do it, we will. But let me know, like I said, let me know who you found for the EMP thing. I happen to know a couple of people that make legitimate ones. It might be them. That's the only reason I asked. So we'll
I
get
do
that straight
appreciate
away.
it more than
No worries.
more than you know.
No worries. No worries. No worries.
All right,
All
you
right,
take care.
guys. Richie from Boston, Karen Stewart. We made it all the way through a live stream this time. I'm cutting it a little bit short because I am on a schedule and I'm super late, but I had to get this done. Karen, if you need me, you got my number.
Thank you so much. You have a good vacation. I
No
know you
worries.
deserve it.
No worries. Like I said, send me that email.
All right, certainly will. Thank
All
you.
right, guys. Richie from Boston, Karen Stewart, ex NSA. We are out.